The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is full of so many secrets and mysteries that fans today are still discovering new details and discussing new theories. In fact, its official HD release on the Wii U has only refueled older fans and inspired new fans to dive in and uncover never-before-known details. Whether you are a new or an old fan of Twilight Princess or the Zelda series as a whole, we are sure that there are at least some new details here that you have never known about. So here are the top 10 amazing facts about Twilight Princess that you did not know. Of course, if we leave some of your favorite facts about this game off of this video, please comment below to let everyone know. You can also let us know which games you would like us to cover next. If we decide to use your suggestion in a future video, we'll be sure to give you a shout out for bringing it to our attention. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out when that video goes live.
Number 10.
The game changed almost completely towards the end of development. Twilight Princess could have been completely different. Revealed in a few different interviews, most notably in the Iwata Asks for Twilight Princess, developers revealed Aonuma and Miyamoto had a tendency to walk in at the last minute and ask for changes. The development team at first would say no to his requests, saying it would take too much time, but he would keep coming back and asking for the same or similar changes. Eventually, the devs would fold and do as they asked. Imagine working on something for a month, needing just a few more weeks to finish. Your boss comes in and asks you to change it. The change would take 2 months. So you say you wouldn't be able to meet the deadline. So you continue working on your project as is. A couple of weeks passed and your project is almost finished. Just a week left. Then your boss comes in again and once again requests or demands that you make a change. All of the time spent on your current project is just thrown away. With only 1 week left, you have to begin a new project as requested by your boss, which will take an entire month or 2. You realize that you should have just agreed to change from the beginning. So in the future, when your boss comes in and requests a change, you know to just accept it and work on the new project or the change. This is what happened with Twilight Princess many times, as reported in Iwata Asks. These changes involve beginning the game as Wolf Link, beginning the game in an entirely new area, having Ordon Village located in a completely different area on the map, and many more, some of which we will also cover here.
Number 9.
Midna's many changes. Midna had many changes during development. We got to see a lot of them in Hyrule Historia. The creation of her actually began due to the previous fact. Miyamoto basically thought that staring at a wolf's behind for hours at a time would be kind of boring. So they came up with the idea of someone riding Link. They wanted the game to be more like Ocarina of Time. In fact, as we've discussed at one point, it was going to be the second sequel to Ocarina of Time. So, just as Link had Navi, they wanted this new Link to have his own companion character. So they thought of the idea of Midna, an imp-like character who would be riding Link and helping him. They then began thinking on how to make her important to the story, which led to the entire game being named after her, and the entire story revolving around her. It is interesting to think that if Aonuma wouldn't have woken up confused and disoriented that day, the entire game of Twilight Princess may have been completely different.
Number 8.
The Overworld is an almost perfect match. Another quick bonus. While Nintendo has mentioned that they keep changing the look and locations of different areas within Hyrule to keep it fun, because coming across Lake Hylia and it looking almost the same in every game would be very boring. In Zelda Encyclopedia, they did confirm that they do keep it familiar enough that fans will find new versions of Hyrule nostalgic. While not everything matches up perfectly, a lot of the major areas are in similar locations. This is great for fans who have fallen in love with the worlds of previous games.
Number 7.
The Wolf Link pitch was originally a joke. Miyamoto thought it would be boring. Remember when it was said that Aonuma or Miyamoto can make suggestions that would completely change the game? Well, this was one of them, and it originally began as a joke. In an interview, Aonuma says, "The initial theme I had in mind was naturally to make the first realistic Zelda game since Ocarina of Time, but I didn't dive in with only that aim in mind. I wanted to shake up the Zelda concept a little. That's why, early on, I brought up the suggestion that, this time, Link could transform into a wolf. I really felt that we needed a new twist of some sort. As for why I chose a wolf, it really was simply what occurred to me at the time. My intention was for it to be just one suggestion to get the ball rolling when we were discussing what kinds of things we might do. I was curious as to how seriously everyone would take it. That's what I was thinking when I threw the idea out there. This time, let's make him into a wolf. Miyamoto-san really gave me a piece of his mind after that. I remember him telling me, "It's a lot harder to make a four-legged animal than it is to make a two-legged human, you know." In another interview, Aonuma would go on to say, "By the way, the wolf transformation idea started some 3 years ago in the GDC when we were thinking of what we should do with the next Zelda game. I woke up in my hotel in San Francisco completely disoriented, like if I had lost my memory. Some seconds later, I remembered that I was in the US to give a speech at the GDC. Maybe it was because of the stress. I then thought of how surprising it'd be if in the next Zelda game, Link started off being imprisoned, or turned into a wolf." In yet another interview, Aonuma would explain that he was afraid to mention the Wolf Link idea to the rest of the team, because he thought they would laugh at him. Miyamoto would tell him it was a boring idea. Why would someone want to stare at the back of a wolf for hours at a time? Which leads to our next fact.
Number 6.
Cancelled third Hero of Time game, Chic and young Chica cut from the game, and design used for Smash Bros. Brawl. Another unused character from Twilight Princess is Zelda's second form, Chic, which was first introduced in Ocarina of Time. Chic was probably presented when the game was being planned as a second Ocarina of Time sequel, likely being centered around an adult Link who had aged normally being the playable character, as opposed to Link time-traveling to become an adult. The model for Chic, though unused in Twilight Princess, went on to be used in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. How do we know the game would have featured an adult Link and not Child Link as Ocarina of Time sequel did? Well, this model for Chic from Twilight Princess is an adult. And since Zelda and Link are similar in age, this means that the third Hero of Time game would have been focused on the life and adventures of an adult Hero of Time. This means that Zelda would have originally had a lot more to do with the story than what she ended up with. And no, Link did not die in Majora's Mask. Nintendo themselves have confirmed this. He grows up, gets married, and even has kids. And then those kids grow up and get married and they have kids, and eventually Link from Twilight Princess is born.
Number 5.
The Fishing Family, one of the best minigames in Ocarina of Time carried over to Twilight Princess. And that is the fishing minigame. Twilight Princess doesn't just bring it back, they expand upon it. Nintendo doesn't just use this to add more content to the game. Nintendo cleverly uses this as a way to add to the lore and backstory of the games. Hannah, the owner of the fishing hole in Zora's River, is believed to be the descendant of the fishing hole man from Ocarina of Time. Sadly, he is unnamed, and only known as the fishing hole man. Hannah is also the youngest of her 2 confirmed siblings, Koro, who sells lantern oil, and Aiza, who owns the Rapids Ride minigame. This would also make them descendants of the fishing hole man. Hannah seems to be the only one of her siblings without an afro, though.
Number 4.
Super Mario Easter eggs. Here's a quick one for you. Miyamoto and others at Nintendo have always placed hints or references of one of their franchises inside of a completely different series. Probably the most famous example of this is in Ocarina of Time, with the Super Mario 64 pictures inside of Zelda's castle, which was actually changed to a Mario level in the 3D remake. Carrying on the tradition of Mario references, Twilight Princess's very odd character, Fire, who is also hinted at being an animal abuser, has a bullet bill image on his sleeve, an obvious reference to his job as a cannon operator. And while we are here, let's not forget Mario and Luigi's doppelgangers, who own Lon Lon Ranch.
Number 3.
Twilight Princess was created because of Wind Waker hate and Wind Waker 2. This is a pretty commonly known fact, but when the GameCube was shown off, Nintendo revealed a tech demo for Zelda, which looked like a graphically updated version of Ocarina of Time, which used the much more powerful GPU, which was named Flipper. The next year, when Nintendo returned to show off the new Zelda game, it looked completely different. Instead of the more realistic and highly detailed tech demo, we were shown the cartoony art style of the Wind Waker. Before the game was even released, Nintendo, as they always do, began pre-production on the next Zelda game, which, at this point, was a direct sequel to Wind Waker, Wind Waker 2. While many people love the art style of the Wind Waker now, some even considering it the best art style in the series, a lot of so-called fans at the time became very vocal and flooded websites and Nintendo with negative feedback. Coupled with the fan hate, Aonuma began thinking that the art style of the game was what led to poor sales, which Aonuma mentioned in an interview. This led to Nintendo of Japan listening to the vocal minority and completely changing Wind Waker 2 into its exact opposite. Instead of getting another cartoony art style Zelda game, which would have given us an adult Toon Link and a Toon Epona, and expounded on a lot of the gameplay in the original, it would have also featured at least one or two larger land masses, with smaller Wind Waker style islands surrounding it. Imagine a world the size of Hyrule Field and Twilight Princess, with the islands the size of those found in the original. Instead of what could have been, we were given Twilight Princess, which was actually a great game on its own. We were still given a game with adult Link and Epona, with a large world to explore. However, it was almost the exact opposite of what it could have been. The darker toned down colors, more mature, realistic graphics and scenarios, which led to the first and only time that a Zelda game was given a T rating.
Number 2.
Twilight Princess 2 cancelled for Link's crossbow training. Another sad tale of a Zelda game being cancelled. After Twilight Princess, Nintendo had the idea to develop a direct sequel to Twilight Princess, which would feature the same Link and take place not long after the original game. They basically wanted to make a Majora's Mask, but this time for Twilight Princess. However, they thought the development process for Twilight Princess 2 would take too long, and they wanted to put something out soon. So, just like Twilight Princess started out as a sequel to Wind Waker, then changed into a third Hero of Time game, and then finally became the Twilight Princess that we have now, this planned sequel turned into Link's crossbow training, which had a very speedy development with a smaller development team. This way, the primary home console Zelda team could focus on the next big Zelda game, while the handheld Zelda team would focus on Phantom Hourglass. The idea of the spin-off began because many of the developers of Twilight Princess felt that the most entertaining aspect of the game was the bow and arrow minigame that can be found in the Hidden Village. So they decided to make a full game based on it, which would make full use of the motion controls. Link's crossbow training was born. Don't be completely sad though. During development of Link's crossbow training, some of the ideas for dungeons, temples, characters, puzzles, new enemies, items, and other concepts that were planned for Twilight Princess 2 made their way into the pre-production of Skyward Sword.
As Nintendo has stated many times, unused ideas and concepts from one cancelled game will make their way into the next. Sometimes the ideas are used in multiple games, some of which aren't even in the same series. For example, unused concepts from the original disc version of Zelda 64 or the Ura Zelda expansion, which are both two different versions of the original concept for Ocarina of Time, went on to be used in Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and other games. Aonuma has even stated that some of the ideas and concepts that he wanted to use for Ocarina of Time, he wanted to use in future Zelda games, but didn't get the chance until Breath of the Wild. That means he kept the same unused idea for almost 20 years before being able to use it. We could be waiting another 20 years for a great unused idea that Aonuma had for Breath of the Wild to finally be used in a game. Another example is how Super Mario Odyssey basically combines the main concepts from multiple Zelda games. A Link Between Worlds allows you to become a 2D image on the wall and changes the camera's point of view. Minish Cap gives you a magical talking hat that gives us brand new abilities and acts as a side character in the game. Majora's Mask allowed us to use a mask or hat for different abilities or to change into entirely new characters, each with their own unique abilities. Of course, there are even more concepts from the Zelda series and other games that Super Mario Odyssey combines into one. Technically, from a certain perspective, you could jokingly say Super Mario Odyssey is the ultimate Zelda game, but that's getting a bit off topic.
Number 1.
Old Kakariko and Impa's location almost didn't exist. Here we sort of have a lot of facts. Honestly, we could probably just make a video explaining all of this in more detail, but to try and make it as short and simple as possible, Twilight Princess introduces us to Impaz and the Hidden Village. Beginning with Impaz, she is Twilight Princess's version of Impa. However, in this game, she doesn't seem to be the protector of Zelda and always by her side, as she is in other games, such as Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword. In Hyrule Historia, Nintendo reveals that Impaz was originally going to be Old Man Impa. This would make him not just the first male version of Impa in the series, but the first male Sheikah shown in the Zelda series as well. Ultimately, this idea was scrapped in favor of the more traditional take on Impa. We would actually have to wait over a decade longer for Nintendo to finally give us a male Sheikah. She is trapped when you first enter Hidden Village. You find a sign that says, "Welcome to Old Kakariko." She tells us that Kakariko was originally founded by the Sheikah Impaz. She comes to tell us that she was actually the founder of Old Kakariko, and she is one of the last remaining Sheikah in Twilight Princess. Now, the location of Old Kakariko is a bit odd and doesn't necessarily match with the previous versions of Hyrule, specifically in Ocarina of Time, which takes place only a few hundred years before Twilight Princess. The original Kakariko village is located on the east side of Hyrule, next to Death Mountain. In Twilight Princess, Kakariko village is located in the same area, right below Death Mountain. But now we have Old Kakariko Village located a long ways away. Going by the information given to us by the games and maps, this would mean the location jumped from one area to another for no reason, or Impa and everyone in Ocarina of Time were wrong and didn't know about the original Kakariko, which was founded by her people not long before the events of Ocarina of Time actually began. So that doesn't make sense. This brings us back to the interview we referenced earlier, where Nintendo said they don't put a big focus on or make a huge deal out of where areas are located or what they look like. They explained if Kakariko Village or Lake Hylia was located in the same place or looked exactly the same every time, it would be boring. Instead, they changed the areas up and only focus on making them fun. Even if that means Lake Hylia is now 4 times the size, Hyrule Castle is now located on the opposite side of the map, or whatever else they want to change. This is the real answer as to why the original Kakariko is now located in a completely different area, instead of where it had previously been. Even going from the previous games, from A Link to the Past to Ocarina of Time, Hyrule itself also has a lot of changes. Again, just as Nintendo has explained, it has nothing to do with lore, backstory, or anything like that. It's all only based on making the game as fun as it can be. This is the real answer as to why the original Kakariko village is now located on a completely different side of the map, instead of where it had previously been. Which takes us to another fact about the Hidden Village. The Hidden Village contains a Western-themed segment where Link needs to take out all of the Boblins. This segment and the Hidden Village were originally never going to be a part of the game. It was something that a developer made as sort of a side project that he thought was fun, which, a bonus fact, is exactly how the entire game of Link's Awakening came to be. But that began as a fishing game, not a Western shootout. Anyways, the developer created a minigame of sorts, where Link would take out the enemies using his bow and arrow in the Western-themed town. At first, he wasn't even going to show it off to the other developers or Miyamoto and Aonuma, thinking no one would like the idea. However, as other devs began playing it, it became incredibly popular and addictive among the staff. So Aonuma made the call to place it in the game. This one little minigame that wasn't originally even a part of the game is why the history of Kakariko Village became so confusing for fans. Once again, proving Nintendo's statement correct. It wasn't because they wanted to focus on lore, geography-based theories, or whatever fans want to come up with on the history of Kakariko Village. It was all, literally, just because Nintendo had too much fun playing a minigame and wanted fans to experience it. As the creator began adding on to the minigame, Aonuma and the others ended up liking it so much that they were afraid that people would skip over it during the playthrough. So they needed to come up with a great reason to force fans to play the minigame. They ended up placing one of the most important parts of the entire story in the village. It then became the location of Impaz and the ancient Skybook, which is needed to bring power back to the staff. It's crazy how a simple minigame that wasn't even planned ended up changing so much about the story, lore, geography, and backstory of not just Kakariko Village, but the entire Sheikah tribe as well.
Hey everyone, it's me again, Elia Rose. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. And you know what? If you're a fan of videos like this, you should totally subscribe and give this video a like and comment below to let us know what type of videos you would like to see us create in the future. And if you would really like to support all of us here at the GameOverJesse channel, please consider purchasing a GameOverJesse t-shirt or becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can receive many rewards, such as getting shoutouts, having any topic or theory that you select discussed on the podcast or made into its own video, having your question answered, joining on as a guest on the podcast, and playing with us during our Twitch live streams at twitch.tv/GameOverJesse, and much, much more.